Brett Sockold here, helping you make every class Catholic. I'm coming to you today from the road. I'm in a hotel in Billings, Montana. This morning I was in Bismarck, North Dakota, working with Catholic teachers at the Catholic schools there at St. Mary's High School. One of the things I do when I'm on the road working with teachers is we have a workshop where we work through a series of questions to help us think about our subject matter from a Catholic point of view. And a lot of the material I get that I share on social media or that I share in some of my presentations, I gather from the conversations I have with teachers in these sessions. And I just wanted to share with you a few things that came up today in my conversation with teachers to give you a sense of what we do and maybe pique your interest, because it's always exciting for me to see what they come up with. I was talking with a few grade 1 teachers who were teaching reading, and very often people say, like reading's just a skill. Like you got to learn how to do it. You got to recognize letters. You got to put sounds together. You got to know how to read. And when you're just teaching a skill, how can that be done from a Catholic point of view? So we had a little conversation about that and what kind of a thing is reading and what does it mean for humans that we read? And these teachers started thinking about this and how they would talk to their students about it. And they said, when you read, you transcend time and space, right? All the other animals we know live in the moment, and it's good to live in the moment sometimes. But humans, particularly by reading and writing, can share things with people who lived thousands of years ago and thousands of miles away, and with people who aren't born yet. By reading and writing, we can transmit something of ourselves well beyond our own limited time and place. It's a kind of a participation almost in eternity that starts already here and now. And so we thought that was just a fascinating thing. And we thought, grade 1s could wrap their heads around that. You might not say you transcend time and space to a grade 1, though maybe you do. But they could certainly understand the idea that it breaks them free from limits, right, of time and space. And it allows them to communicate with people in all different times and places. I talked to some music teachers, and very often this is what happens. The first thing people think about is the kind of content, right? So we can look at the lyrics maybe of some worship songs that we study. We know them from Mass, so we could bring them back to the classroom and look at some of the lyrics. And sure, you could do some of that. Nothing wrong with that. But we started thinking a little more about what it means that we use music at Mass at all. You could ask the students, is Mass better with music or without music? And if, as we kind of expect, they probably think it's better with music, you could ask them why. What is it about music that makes worship better? How are music and worship related? And you could have a really fascinating conversation with even elementary school, but certainly with middle school students about that. Some ideas that came up with the teachers were the idea that music moves us at a deeper level than the purely intellectual, right? Which might help explain St. Augustine's famous quote that he who sings prays twice, right? That there's some depth that can be accessed through music. Another thing was the experience of singing together in a choir or in a congregation, that joining our voices in melody or harmony and rhythm does something to form a community, which is part of what's going on in worship as well. And then I went to the high school science teachers table, and they were having a conversation about ethics that I hadn't heard before. When we talk about ethics for science teachers, the most common thing is to think, well, we have this knowledge, right? Maybe nuclear power or something like that. And how can we use our knowledge well? Which is a great question to ask in science class. But these science teachers were having a conversation about another ethical question to do with science. Not how do we use the knowledge we have, but how do we seek knowledge? One of them had heard about the idea that curiosity could be a vice. Curiositas. In English, our word for curiosity can mean something quite good, and we're not used to hearing of it spoken of as a vice. So they had this conversation where they made this distinction where a curiosity that pursues knowledge for bad reasons or with bad methods or seeks things that we don't have a right to know, right? Prying into other people's privacy, for example, could be examples of a vice of curiosity. And so we should not only be aware of the kinds of decisions we make once we have certain knowledge and how we put that knowledge into practice, But even before we go about our pursuit of knowledge, we should ask ourselves questions about why we want to know what we want to know. Is it good? Are we seeking it in a good way? Are our motives good? Is our method good? And is the thing we're seeking something we should want to know about, right? I thought that was fascinating to hear that conversation. And I thought it would be a really interesting thing for those teachers to bring into dialogue with their students when they're studying, because probably their students would be as shocked as most of us to hear that curiosity might be a vice sometimes, but as you reflect on it, you can see how it certainly could be. So just wanted to share with you a few ideas that came up in these workshops that I do with teachers. I always find them very exciting. I'm going to do it again tomorrow morning here in Billings. Pray for me. God bless.